this is one of those statements that, maybe because we've heard it so often, it doesn't really impact us anymore, but would be like a broad slap upside the head to these people. The Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. And even preceding that, when he says, you know that what David did. So basically, he wouldn't put it this way because our Lord has virtue and I am still working on it. But how dare you morons, you know that my disciples actually, they're doing this because they're not just hungry like you and are in between meals. These men would not have been overweight. First of all, they were walking with Jesus everywhere. No fridge, no lunch bags, no lunch pails. We got to contextualize, get into their shoes. These men were hungry at times. Like they went without food. Following Jesus was a real serious commitment of poverty for these individuals. People, followed him a little bit here, a little bit there, but for his immediate inner circle, like the 12 and perhaps others around them, it was a major commitment. Like we wouldn't call it a vow of poverty, but many times they were very, very hungry. So they were doing something essential on the Sabbath, and that is just getting basic sustenance. And they dared to bring up this rule to kind of, nitpick. And Jesus puts them right in their place, as he should have, and he did. But it doesn't take away the point that the Sabbath is a gift for us. And that's really what I want to focus on. The Sabbath is a gift given by God, the third commandment. Keep holy the Sabbath. They went off the rails in terms of all the individual things that they determined by their human tradition meant to violate the Sabbath, when in fact, it's what we would say, for example, is you have to go to church even if you're sick, which is like a moronic statement. You don't have to go to church if you're sick. The church has always understood this. The going to Mass is a positive law of the church. It's not the divine law. The divine law is keep holy the Sabbath. So even if you're sick, you're required to keep the Sabbath. But you probably keep it in bed. And you offer up the day to the Lord. The Archbishop can lift the requirement to attend Mass. This is a church positive law. But it is a logical fulfillment of the third commandment, and it was mandated by the Lord himself. Do this in memory of me at the Last Supper. So it's a gift for us, to us. And the reason why it's so important, with the limited time here, just to kind of highlight a few points, without the Sabbath, or let's put it before the Sabbath, basically the Jewish people, and they're the only ones who practice the Sabbath in the so-called ancient world, as the Sabbath. There might have been, I'm old enough to remember in Ontario a couple years ago, the government, I won't say which one, let's have a common pause day. Well, that didn't go very well because whatever. No, you have to have something of a higher order. And the only thing that really works is if you have the Sabbath, like a common pause day, because the government, legislates or encourages people to do this, is not going to work. Is not going to hold. We have to have a reason to practice Sabbath. And in fact, God had to order his children to do this under threat of death. Now, why? Because God's mean? No. But because they were so immersed in the pagan culture in which they lived, they were so subject and used to working 7 days a week in slavery that they couldn't imagine anything else. And so, as I've said before, when God had Moses go to Pharaoh and say, the Lord Sabaoth wants us to go in 3 days and worship him on Mount Horeb, Pharaoh understood this as an act of war, as an act of rebellion and insurrection. Why? Because it wasn't a 3-day vacation. It was actually, they would start thinking about, aside from slavery, which has us constantly subjected to the now, what I have to do now. It's what all the distractions do, as I'll kind of bring out in my Sunday sermon, is once you start practicing Sabbath, you remember its purpose is not common pause, but it's to worship God, number one. We have a creator. We have an origin. And we owe him worship. It's the virtue of religion, which is the greatest of all the... Charity is the greatest of virtues, but the virtue of religion is in some way the greatest because It is to render God that which is his due, and what is his due is worship. So we remember we have a creator, we have an origin. It reminds us that we're going to someone, not to somewhere, the grave. We're going there, of course. We can't avoid it, but we're going to someone. And as Bishop Sheen used to say, at the end of the road, there's only two voices, the beatific vision of God or the miserific voice of the devil. That we're going to someone. We have a destiny, and our destiny and our purpose is union with the Creator. That's what Sabbath was meant to teach us. It's a gift. Aside from the beneficial aspects that we need to rest physically, mentally, and emotionally. We need that as human beings. We can't be going all the time. It'll burn us out. We're not meant for that. I didn't realize, but Seventh-day Adventists who make a religion on the, they practice the Saturday Sabbath. They think we're Antichrist because, for lots of reasons, but we go to church on Sunday, they go to church on Saturday. But they keep it religiously. It's their whole religion, Seventh-day Adventist. Statistics have been done on these people. They live about 10 years longer than the average population. And if you add up the Sabbaths, there's a statistic that's kind of eye-opening when you sort of add up all the Sabbaths they practice over a lifetime. It's quite staggering. I can't remember the exact, because I read this only yesterday. But there's statistical evidence, is my point, that if we practice Sabbath, we actually will live longer and live better, healthier, happier. So it's a gift given to us, and you and I need to be intentional about living the Lord's Day, which is our Sabbath, the day in which Jesus rose from the dead. So what should we try to do? Sometimes you have to work, you have to work. If you don't have to work, don't work. If you don't have to offer yourself to work extra, don't. Because we get into a trap. I work on Sunday. Aside from Mass, I do administrative stuff, and I keep telling myself, stop doing this. If you have to stay up till 9 o'clock on Saturday, which, doing this, then do it on Saturday night so that you rest on Sunday. Because if we don't do this, we'll never do it. And then how can I tell you, to encourage you to stop on Sunday and practice Sabbath? So we need to be intentional about doing as little our normal work, like our administrative stuff or our regular work, on Sabbath. But positively, the other side is making time for worship, whether you go to Mass Saturday night or Sunday, and then making time to pray outside of Mass, and then spending time with family, and just enjoying God's creation. Because, it's not going to church in the bush. But God is there in the bush. He's everywhere, of course. He's omnipresent, and we can glorify him and thank him by taking a hike. So take a hike. Right? You know what I mean, right? Go on a hike or something. Going along, even walking around Stanley Park is absolutely beautiful. We're so blessed here. But this doesn't take away from the highest form of worship, which is the sacrifice of the Mass. So these are things that renew our soul. They remind us of our purpose. Why are we doing all of this? Where are we going? Who am I going to meet at the end of my life? Am I frightened of dying? St. John, this really hit me this morning when I was praying. St. John says, perfect love casts out all fear. So if I'm frightened of dying, I don't love him enough. So I'm asking him to help me to love him more than I fear death. And if you do that enough times, he'll take away your fear of death. Don't trust me. Trust St. John. And he knew this stuff. Perfect love casts out all fear. So I'm working on it, and the Sabbath helps all of us. So I know I'm going on and on, but it's so important that we practice the Sabbath. It's our gift. It's the gift given to us by the Creator. It's medicine for our soul, and it will be beneficial for our family life. So really strive to be intentional about the Sabbath.